Guys, Super Bad Chess Classic resumed yesterday after the free day, and we got a very interesting matchup between Alireza Firouzja and Gukesh Tamaraju. So, first of all, if you watched the previous recaps, you already know that Gukesh is not performing well. He is, I guess right now, he is dead last. You'll see the standings after this game's recap, and you know, I immediately started, like, when choosing the games, I was like, okay, Alireza versus Gukesh. The games that come to my mind are the ones from the Candidates 2024 here in Toronto from last year. And I remember Gukesh had some struggles against Alireza. He lost one game, he won one game, but you know, Alireza was the only one who beat Gukesh in that Candidates tournament. So it's an exciting matchup. Two youngsters. Alireza, who is, you know, has been here in top in elite for a while, but still has to prove that he, you know, he's one of the best players. Because you don't really relate him to that. Well, Gukesh is already world champion. So let's see what happened. So Alireza goes e4, and we have e5. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, Italian game. So basically on this level, yes, we saw Scotch by Maxim Shilograf, but now Alireza goes for Italian. They either play Rai Lopez or Italian. Scotch is playable sometimes, but it's not as often as, let's say, these two main openings. Bishop c5, c3, knight f6, d3. So here people try to avoid d4 just because it basically looks like an immediate draw. Bishop b5, knight d4, and generally black get a very easy play. As soon as they play f6, basically they equalize. Then bishop g4, castle, and potential pressure on f file. So you really want to avoid that. So d3, very solid approach, a6, and now bishop goes to g5, pinning this knight on f6. d6, knight bd2, bishop goes to a7, quite common, knight e7, and now Gukesh allows Alireza to take on f6. So yes, he doubled the pawns, but there is a small nuance. If white go for short castle, as it happened in the game, there are some possibility of some attacks, and you know, I would be slightly scared to go short side here, because knight g6, I no longer have anything on this diagonal to potentially take on f4, so I might deal with it very bad, and honestly I wouldn't allow it. It just, yes, you double the pawns, but then the attack on g file, you're like, nah, let's not deal with it. But those are super grandmasters, and they're playing super well, not like me or most of you watching. Knight g6, let's d4, h5, and rook goes to a1. Knight f4, knight goes to f1, and potentially trying to get knight maybe to g3 f5 or e3 d5. That's one of the plans. c6, knight f3, d5, and d5 is something, yes, computer thinks it's best, but for me, like, white still have a rook on open file with the king, and, you know, might get dangerous. Takes, bishop f1, and now e4. Knight h4, and knight is somewhere ready to jump to f5. This bishop is completely locked, but it can reroute itself to b8 and try to attack this h2. Bishop e6, c4, trying to immediately strike in the center, weaken some pawns, and also create some attack on e file. King goes to f8. First slight mistake. Queen goes to b3, attacking on b7 and putting pressure on d5. Queen goes to d7, protecting both pawns. I mean, this pawn was protected, but pawn on b7 required some protection. C takes d5, knight d5, and now bishop c4. Knight f4, queen a3 check, king g8, and now knight goes to f5. The idea is, it looks like black take a piece, but there is queen g3, and what happens is white retake. Because let's say, obviously, bishop g4, queen f4. If knight g6, we don't take on f5, we take on g6, and now after bishop g6, there is queen g6. We're exploiting the spin on a2, g8 diagonal. So bishop goes to b8, trying to attack and potentially creating some threats, but now queen goes to g3, knight g6, bishop e6, queen e6, queen e3. Bishop a7 goes back, queen e4, knight h4, knight e7, king g7, and at this point, as you might see by looking at the evil bar, the position is almost hopeless. but don't make conclusions yet, because a lot of interesting things happen. Queen h4. Now queen on e6 is attacked. Queen g4 and now takes. So what computer suggests here is to play rook e4. Make sure that black still have this pawn on h5 in the endgame, and then knight jumps to f5, and just huge advantage for white pieces. But rook e4, and it looks like white take this pawn anyways, but king f8. Now rook g4 is not possible due to king f7, rook e1, rook d8. Now rook takes g4, bishop d4, knight f5, and now it's not so easy. Now there are some troubles of converting this endgame. Rook e4, bishop c3, rook b1, b5 takes. Now rook b5 cannot be played due to rook d1 back rank checkmate ideas. h4, creating space, b4, and now bishop protects b4, f6, f7. This one, as you see, is a draw. So Alireza has almost no time. He has minutes, Gukesh has 10 minutes. King g8, rook e7, rook d5, king goes to g2. And now Gukesh decides to sacrifice in exchange. That was not needed at all. In the following position, rook d7 was somewhat drawish, but again, there are constant threats like rook e8. Like, you don't want to remove your rook from the 8th rank, because rook e8 might come eventually. But you know what the best move is? Pabam. Oh my goodness. And then pabam, and basically it's a draw. But I'm not sure why it is the best though. Like rook d7, let's say I go king g2 and now king g8. Oh my goodness, and white still want to sacrifice, computer still want to sacrifice on b4 because it thinks it's annoying. So king g8 was played instead, but now this crucial rook e7 move was allowed, and rook d5, king g2, and now it just turns out that, let's say, there are no good moves. Bishop cannot really move. Let's say bishop d2, there is just rook d1, pinning this on d file, and after b3 there is rook b7, and white will capture the pawn on b3. So there are just no good moves, and let's say if they try to wait after, not even, it's hard to wait because you can't go king h7. If you play king f8, then rook b7, you're threatening to take on b4, and then there are back rank checkmate ideas, rook b8, so now black will have to sack. So yes, there were a couple of mistakes, and rook f5, the sacrifice was needed. Rook a8 check first, king g7, rook h8. Now rook f4 was somewhat good for some reason. Rook f2 is not as good, but still computer evaluates it as a slight advantage. Like, as you might see, plus 0.5. It's not a huge advantage on this level. Takes, king f3, king g7, king d3. And as you might actually see, 0.2, 0.5, it's not winning. Something winning is, let's say, plus 5. That's winning. Plus 0.5, it's not winning as of yet. And as we will see, the evil bar will go down even lower. So king h4 cannot be played, rook h1 is a checkmate. So king has to come back, king g4, king g7, h5. And this position is a draw. So the question you might be asking is why? So there are circumstances when, let's say, every pawn is being traded off the board, and bishop and king can set up a fortress, which white won't break. And in the following case, there's a huge possibility that this endgame might happen, which we'll see in the game itself. So f6, bishop f6, rook b4, bishop g5, and now black are lost. So according to computer, bishop c3 was best, and after rook c4, bishop e5, there is no good way to break through it as it looks like. Let's say rook c8, there is king g7, and for now black just keep rolling around, and yes, apparently there's not much they can do. Let's say rook e8, trying to go this way, rook a7, king h6, king g4, and then bishop just goes back. And if white will basically give up this pawn, this will definitely be a draw, because black pawn, the bishop will make a draw, but that didn't happen. Bishop g5, rook goes to b7, f6. So this fortress setup was all wrong because white get black into Zugzwang by playing rook f7. So rook f7 here is the best move. I'm not sure why computer thinks it's a mistake, but it's the best move. Now black go bishop d2, rook takes f6, and now it has a win. And despite black taking the spot on h6, it doesn't change things. King f6, Alireza knows this endgame, and one of the crucial things. So if this king was on h1, this would be a draw, because then bishop g1, bishop h2, it is a fortress which we were talking about. Now, this bishop can't get to, I mean, it's a wrong corner basically. The king has to be on the opposite color of its bishop in order for it to be a draw. The corner square has to be the opposite color. In this case, the corner color is black, the same color as the bishop. That's why black are cooked. Gukesh is lost, and Alireza converts perfectly. Bishop a7, rook a6, bishop b8, rook b6, bishop c7, rook b7, bishop f4, rook b4, bishop g5, rook b1, and black resigned. There is no defense. King h6 now walks into rook h1, and black have to give up a bishop with bishop h6. Anywhere bishop moves on this diagonal, anywhere, or king h8, it's always Zugzwang. There is nothing that black can do to prevent. Let's say bishop d2, there is rook h1, bishop has to block, and now simple rook h3 wins the game due to king h8, the only move, rook h6, checkmate. So now let's take a look at the standings after round number 6. Fabi still first, along with Maxim, Alireza Prague. Then we have Wesley, Levon, Bogdan, Daniel Dak. Then Youngjish, Abdullah, Nadir Bek, and Gukesh is last after 6 rounds of play. In the 7th round, as you can see, Levon is playing Fabi, Gukesh plays Wesley, Prague plays Alireza, Nadir Bek plays Youngjish, Abdullah, and Bogdan, Daniel Dak plays against Maxim Vashielaga. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think about recent struggles of Gukesh, the current world champion. I'll see you soon tomorrow in the next recap. Bye bye.